I said maybe we could start with a silent chat and people introducing where they're coming from.
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Martine from Lyon 3 University.
Oh, okay.
And I'm in charge of international partnerships. And so please introduce yourself.
No, I think Francesca was suggesting that we use the text chat because it would take too long if we.
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. And I think while people start presenting themselves in the text chat, I did just want to do a quick round of our many speakers today, just for them to say their names and where they are connecting from so that we have an idea of who these people are who are going to talk to you today and where they're located. So I'm just going to go based on the list I have of all our many speakers. So I'm the first one. So my name is Sarah Guth and I'm located in Padova, Italy. So Claudia?
Hi, my name is Claudia Padovani, also from Padova, Italy, Department of Politics, Law and International Studies.
Francesca?
I'm Francesca Helm, also from the Department of Politics, Law and International Studies with Claudia at the University of Padova.
And Ilaria?
Hi everyone, I'm Ilaria Berti from students of European and Global Studies, a master degree course at the University of Padua, and also intern of STAR Italy at the University of Padua.
So we're not all in Padova, so Tomas.
Hi everybody, I'm Tomas Péter Szabó, a senior researcher from the Department of Teacher Education from the University of Jyväskylä in Finland. And I have 3 excellent students with me. So if you could introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So my name is Laura Castañovas, and I'm a first-year master's student in the Educational Sciences program. And I'm very happy to be part of this meeting today. Thank you.
And where are you located physically?
In Jyväskylä.
Ah, okay, all the students are there and okay, fantastic, okay.
Yeah, this is Wenna, also speaking from Jyväskylä, Finland. I'm a master's student in educational sciences, working with Thomas.
Yeah.
And hi, my name is Thiago. I'm a bachelor student from University of Valencia in Spain, and I am actually in Valencia.
Okay. So you're not in Finland?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, Thiago is from our partner university.
Okay, fantastic. And now back to Padova. So, Lisa?
Yes, I'm Lisa. I'm from Padua University. I've been working at the Language Center, and from last week, I have been working for the Digital Learning Center.
And I believe Veronica's not here, correct? Yeah. And Andrei and Veronica Kaminska, are they here?
Yes, yes. So I'm Veronica from Poland, and I do my Erasmus in Padova for the summer semester.
And so you're in Poland now, or you'll?
No, I'm in Padova.
Ah, okay, fantastic. Okay. And Andrei?
I don't know if you can see my video because it seems that it does not work. Okay, I'll try to fix it. I don't know what is happening. However, I'm Andrei, and I'm a student of master degree in Padua, and now I'm living in a city near Padua. Sorry for this problem. We'll try to solve it as soon as possible.
It's not a problem because we all know what it's like. We've all experienced it ourselves. Okay, so we've got 2 hours filled with lots of exciting talks and information. So let me just share my screen and give a very brief introduction to this session. Okay, I will remove you from there. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So this is a webinar on virtual exchange, but we're going to have a specific focus, which I'll talk about later. So what we want to do today is I'll give a brief introduction to virtual exchange, and then we're going to look at 3 different case studies, and they're actually quite different from one another. And we also decided to include student voices because we think it's really important for those making decisions and innovating at different universities to also hear the students' point of view directly from the students, which is why our group is so big. So first we'll hear from Scholars at Risk, then For Them, which is a European university. And then Lisa will talk to us about eTandem. Each presentation for each case study will last 15 minutes, followed by 5 minutes Q&A. It's only 5 minutes for Q&A after each case study because we'd like to have 20 minutes for discussion at the end with a focus on Arqus. So definitions are difficult, especially in an emerging field. So I'm just going to give a broad definition of how those of us on this webinar understand virtual exchange. So it's an innovative pedagogy. It's not a technology, it's a pedagogy for online learning. And it's technology enabled. And the main focus is people to people. So it's really about bringing people together in dialogue, in interactions, and in collaborating with one another. Of course, my internet connection is unstable. If necessary, if you have difficulties hearing me, tell me and I'll turn my video off. It is preferably sustained over a period of time, but not necessarily. And virtual exchanges are projects that really have to be carefully designed, and they have to be carefully designed to ensure that the discussions are meaningful so that students are learning not only about the other culture, but they're also learning about themselves and their own culture. Although virtual exchange is very student-centered and often student-led, it has to be facilitated by teachers and or trained facilitators to make sure that there is dialogue and discussion going on. And there is a very strong focus on reflection. So after synchronous sessions, after maybe some asynchronous interactions, it's important for students to take a step back and reflect on what they're learning. And just to clarify a little further, so what virtual exchange is not. So for example, participating in and completing a course in a partner university, so even joint degree courses or what is more commonly known as virtual mobility is not virtual exchange, and neither is participating in a MOOC where there is no collaboration, because that interaction collaboration between people is really what characterizes virtual exchange. So just briefly, some primary differences between virtual exchange and other forms of online learning. In virtual exchange, there is a strong focus on the intercultural aspect. It might also be content learning, but the intercultural is very important. It is based on activities that promote this kind of interaction. So not student doing their own thing, but actually interacting and working together. It aims to promote reciprocity, equity, and inclusiveness. And it has been found that virtual exchange can prepare, deepen, and extend physical exchanges, and also fuel new demand for physical exchange. So students who maybe before engaging in a virtual exchange were hesitant to want to go on some kind of mobility, after a virtual exchange might be more interested in doing so. So briefly, just why virtual exchange? And this is just a long list of kind of buzzwords and the various strategic aims that we see in higher education across Europe and other parts of the world as well. So one of the strategic aims that's been going on for years now, obviously, is global competence and citizenship, internationalization, digitalization, in terms of employability, developing different skills, so communication skills, teamwork, involving digital competence, intercultural competence, etc. The list is long. I didn't include them all, but all of these transversal skills that people say they want to promote, but then don't necessarily explicitly promote them. Virtual exchange does explicitly promote them. Virtual exchange obviously promotes inclusion because there are students who, for whatever reason, might not be able to engage in a physical mobility, and this gives them the opportunity to have some kind of international experience. It also is related to this growing idea that we need to respect the environment, and that traveling, all of the traveling related to physical mobility might not be so good for the environment. And then it really fits in, I think, with this concept behind the European Universities Initiative, in the sense that virtual exchange is a form of networked learning, okay? And these European University Alliances are networks. So it's a network model of higher education. It cannot exist on a single campus. You can't do it yourself. You need partners. It requires integration and dialogue among institutions in different countries. You have to work together. And it can only be successful by negotiating different educational mandates and structures, academic calendars and teaching styles. So there's lots of negotiation that has to take place. And this is actually one of the biggest challenges to virtual exchange, because traditionally institutions collaborate on research, but very few have experience with collaborative networking in the area of pedagogy. And so it's this collaborating on that level of pedagogy, which I think is a challenge for many people interested in virtual exchange. And the last thing I just wanted to say is that it is still very much an emerging field. I mean, it's been around for 20 years now, if not more. But especially with COVID, there's been a big boom. And with that, new models of virtual exchange are emerging. So there's not just one model. And so that's what today is about. Today is going to focus, these people are going to, our speakers are going to tell us about how their models of virtual exchange worked within different networks. And with that, I would turn it over to Claudia and Francesca.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. I think I'm going to start. So I'm going to share my screen. I hope you can see this. Is it okay?
Yep.
All right. So thank you very much. We're pleased to be here and to share this experience. We're going to be speaking about one of the different models of virtual exchange that we have experimented in Padova in the context of the Scholars at Risk framework. So for those who are participating today and may not be familiar, I'm going to introduce some of the elements just to share a little bit of information about Scholars at Risk. And we find that this opportunity today is particularly relevant because it is about sharing an experience with our virtual initiative. But on the other side, we are aware that 3 out of 6 members of the Arqus Alliance are also members of Scholars at Risk. And also there is another member, Leipzig, that is not a member of Scholars at Risk, but carries out some similar activities in terms of hosting and hospitality for scholars who are at risk. So we already share some understanding of what we're actually talking about. And so just to give a brief introduction to the national section of SAR that has been established in Italy. This is a recent initiative. It was launched in February 2019. At the time, 14 universities participated in the initial stage. And nowadays, after 2.5 years, we count 29 between universities, research centers, and also academic association. So it has grown very quickly. We didn't expect this, but that's also a sign of the degree of interest that universities are posing to issues that pertain to academic freedom, freedom of expression within academia and research. We are organized through a steering committee that's now comprising 7 universities, and 2 of these universities are appointed to coordinate the entire structure. So all the activities that Scholars at Risk carry out. Francesca and myself, together with Esther Gallo from the University of Trento, have been coordinating for the past 2 years and will continue coordinate for the next 2 years. Now, the 3 basic pillars of action for Scholars at Risk are protection, which means the hosting of scholars, welcoming scholars, developing practices, and also guidelines for hosting, which of course is quite a complicated matter, because it is not just about identifying the scholar and finding the resources, but then there is a whole process of bureaucracy, dealing with visa, dealing with permissions, as well as mentoring at different levels. So this is part of the action. In Italy, there are currently 7 scholars hosted. A second activity is advocacy, and a third activity is learning and dissemination of issues. So just briefly, I was talking about protection. In Italy, we developed some guidelines for hosting, because we realized that SAR itself provides some guidelines with basic information and suggestions. But of course, the protection and hosting is very much constrained and limited by local challenges. And so we had to develop this, and it took maybe more than a year to do so. But now finally the guide is available, and I'm saying this because this may also be something that we would like to share with members of Arqus who already have experience with hospitality. The second element is learning, and learning is broadly understood in terms of dissemination. So we organize a speaker series whereby some of the scholars that are hosted at the different universities, they come, they talk about their experience, or they talk about their research activities, because as we know, the hosting is not so much to provide a safe refuge to scholars who are no longer able to work in their countries, but it's mainly to allow them to have a space whereby they can safely focus on their research activities. Another activity was participating in the European Researchers' Night with 3 different universities organizing kind of a relay race of events that went well into the night. And then we organized workshops and seminars, as well as a student internship at our universities. And maybe Ilaria will say something about her own experience because she is actually part of this. Now, what we would like to focus, and this is to contextualize the seminar that we're presenting today, is advocacy is the third pillar. And of course, advocacy is another articulated area, because it means taking position in support of specific situations of individual scholars, as well as individual institutions or country cases. So we all heard in the last few months issues and cases being raised to the public attention in Turkey, in Belarus, in Egypt. So we are familiar with those. Then advocacy means to do something concrete to address some of these situations. So advocacy seminars with students and legal clinics are part of this experiential form of learning. But then, of course, the advocacy that SAR carries out goes beyond that. And it concerns petitions that are elaborated and then disseminated and shared. It concerns campaigns. It concerns networked activities. For instance, at the European level recently, a European Coordinating Committee for Advocacy has been established, and that is an interesting space to debate specific interventions that can deal with the situation, like, for instance, currently in Belarus, but engaging the European institutions at different levels. So the seminars are part of this advocacy initiative, And at the same time, they are part of the learning experience, because it is about teaching and learning, as we will hear from Francesca, but they're also part of the research activity that SAR carries out. In our case, this is a laboratory offered to the master degree in European and Global Studies, which is an international degree offered at the department. But at the same time, we aimed from the beginning, meaning recent initiative last year, to also have students from other degrees participating, because we realized that in order to develop advocacy campaigns, it is so important to actually pull together different competencies, different resources that students can have from politics, communication, knowledge in human rights, and possibly others. And finally, the goal of the experiential learning. So it is about many of the things that Sarah mentioned at the beginning. So all the transversal skills that we normally find in European documents. But then the focus is on the one side, doing research on human rights, international standards and mechanisms. So learning what it means to operate in relation to advocacy for the protection of human rights, fundamental freedom, specifically in connection to university and academic context. And then it is also about how to engage in those activities in the broader framework of SAR, both as a network of universities which are offering similar courses and as a network that operates to support freedom of expression in general terms. So we had two experiences up to now. The first one last year in spring were two cases were taken into consideration by two groups of students, both cases from Iran, that of Ahmad Reza Jalali, a doctor of disaster medicine, and that of Nilufar Bayani, who is a natural scientist and working for environmental protection. And then this year, we also have two groups of students, one again working on the case of Dr. Jalali, because it is a very serious and urgent situation. And the second case working on a well-known case of Patrick Zaki held in Egyptian prisons. As you can see, the students are international at our university, and more international discussion and debate takes place as we take the seminar to a network stage. Francesca, I'll run the slides for you.
Thank you. And so in terms of kind of different models of virtual exchange, I would say this is a kind of a networked virtual exchange. This is, as Claudia said, it's our second time, and we're in the middle of running the second seminar. So it's a new experience for us, which we are kind of taking ownership of, if you like. And the levels of networking are multiple. So it is because Scholars at Risk is an international network and also a national network, the advocacy seminars are run in close collaboration with the organization. So Scholars at Risk kind of coordinates all of the student advocacy seminars across the United States and wherever there are other members, increasingly in Europe. And in particular, it's Adam Braver at Roger Williams University. So the central coordination, if you like, is at this level, and they have the expertise. They share resources with us. So in terms of what advocacy means, we work with them to identify the cases that students work on. So it is part of the Scholars in Prison projects. As I kind of saying, Sarah does advocacy work on the part of prisoners, of scholars who have been in prison. So Sarah identifies a list of scholars who then the students in the advocacy seminars choose. So there are parallel seminars running at different universities, and some of these seminars are working on the same cases. And so at the central level, SAR will coordinate all the student seminars working on the same cases and put the coordinators, the teachers, in contact with each other so that students can also collaborate. This is also valuable to us in many ways, because I think it gives us access to expertise, to colleagues who are working on advocacy, who may have different areas of expertise. So we have colleagues working on the legal level, so developing the advocacy campaign. For example, last year we were in contact with Alejandra Gonza, who is actually preparing the advocacy campaign for Nilufar Bayani. And she and her students came and spoke to our students, talking about the advocacy work they were doing. at the University of Dundee, the advocacy seminar, again, on a case we were working on, they were working very much on advocacy campaigns, the analysis of advocacy campaigns, and their students talked to our students, and we had meetings and interactions about that. So we built this kind of network of experts and students, and this has been very valuable. We haven't actually co-developed courses yet, but this is something we will talk about later and the proposals for this, but it is collaboration within this. But I'd also like to highlight the collaborations that have been taking place outside of academia, because in our seminar, we've collaborated with Amnesty International on a local level. So we've had Padova Amnesty activists who have also connected us with the central Amnesty people. So we collaborated with them last year, and we are again re-collaborating with them. And Wikimedia, our students have been working on Wikimedia pages of scholars who have been in prison, and this has entailed collaboration with Wikimedia. Again, on a local level, we had a workshop, but then these are both organizations that work on international level, and so there is interesting scope for further collaboration in that sense, and also working in multiple languages. So we're using English, but we are also working with the multiple languages of our students. And I think this is one of the themes we were going to address. And I think it's important and interesting also for the Arqus Academy. And the next slide, Claudia. And so the value of a networked seminar is that it connects what we're doing to a real world organization and real world events. We've developed an academic community of practice between the colleagues working on the seminars. We have every semester, there is a meeting of all the educators working on seminars. And this is a good opportunity to, share our concerns, to share advice. The mailing list remains active, and we collaborate in dissemination events too. So this sharing expertise and resources is very valuable, and I think is supported by the central coordination, but it's something, again, which could be replicated in Arqus. Students learn the value of collaboration and international communication skills. As the pandemic has shown, we are highly interdependent, and we need to work more on collaboration. And unfortunately, university very often doesn't prepare our students for these kinds of collaboration. And the other value in terms of advocacy has been in terms of creating continuity among campaigns, because these are, it's very important to keep awareness on the cases, and also to amplify by working in a networked way. We very much amplify the strength of advocacy campaigns, multiplying them in different languages as well. And this is just a poster, again, of one of the events that the students organized. And I'd like to highlight, we are working with international students. The seminar is in English, but then through the campaign, they have also been working in Italian. So it's supporting the language development of students, of our Italian students, but also the international students who come to Padova, but working in different languages as well. Ilaria.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ilaria Berti, a student of Master Degree course European and Global Studies at the University of Padova. And today I'm here to tell you about my experience with SAR Italy, in particular first as a student and then as an intern. First of all, I chose to take part in the laboratory of SAR Advocacy Seminar to discover the world of advocacy, because I think it was a fundamental part and very important today, and think, for example, to the case of Patrick Zaki. And in particular, I was interested to understanding how advocacy works in practice, and how it managed to influence public policy, public opinion first, and then the political world, for example. And the SAR Advocacy Seminar was a very useful and interesting experience, and also very stimulating, because first of all, from numerous lectures held via Zoom with Italian and international speakers. We were introduced to the Iranian context in order to better understand the history and the geopolitical context to implement more effective actions for the scholar we were supposed to deal with. Later, particularly in the Zoom meeting with the students from the University of Dundee, we had the opportunity to work on an intercultural context and with people with different cultures from mine, but that have faced the same challenges, we can say. And in fact, we learn more about how advocacy worked, and they told us in particular how they worked on the Jalali case, running in particular an online advocacy campaign. So it was very useful for us to have the opportunity to talk with them, because they were students like us, and we understood better, in fact, how to proceed following their advice and their experiences. In fact, then we chose to work on Ahmadreza Jalali case and also Nilufar Bayani case. In particular, regarding the case of Nilufar Bayani, we chose to first, we contacted an artist, and how you can see the image there, because we wanted a catchy image of Bayani, which together with the slogan, for example, the slogan no master or PhD prepares for jail or persecution, we would encourage to sharing information about her imprisonment and her history. Also, we chose to enrich the Wikipedia page of this scholar, in particular of Bayani and also of Ahmadreza Jalali, because we think that it's one of the first page that people can see, the first information sites that appears when people search online. In fact, and this was very useful because we used our different language skills to develop new Wikipedia pages. For example, I worked with my colleagues that were from other countries and spoke different languages. And we started from the English page, and then we translate the information in this page in other languages to spread more information about their cases. And this was very useful because we have also noticed that during the awareness days, in particular on Jalali case, the number of views of the Wikipedia page increased a lot. So this proves how usefulness these information pages are. Also, we had the opportunity to present their cases and to speak in different contexts. For example, we organized a Zoom event, which is Mobilitiamoci per la libertà accademica, its name, this one. And it's in this event we present their cases and we had the opportunity to talk about them. But at the same time, we also sent a letter to the Italian Senator Elena Cattaneo to draw attention in particular in the situation of Ahmadreza Jalali. So how you can see, we worked at different levels. We chose to present their cases in some events, but also to try to contact the Italian senator. So we use different skills, we can say. Also, we chose to work on the social network campaign because, and it was, how I said, very useful to speak with the students of the University of Dundee, and we created a virtual flash mob by using hashtags such as Free Nilufar, you can see there, and also Save Madresa. And we chose to change our profile picture to a frame designed by us. And we used these images to share a lot of information about the scholars and inviting other people like us to do the same. So I would underline that this advocacy seminar didn't just focus on explaining just to us what advocacy was and how it works, but also gave us the opportunity to actively work on concrete cases and confronting us with other students like us from other countries, working in an international level. And also, I had the opportunity to make my internships with SAR Italy and with the division, International Division Office at the University of Padua. And in fact, since October 2020, I've been helping an at-risk Iranian scholar who came to the University of Padua. This experience is very nice for me, but we had lots of challenges to face and still face, in particular challenges with Italian bureaucracy. Because you have to think that, for example, this scholar comes from Iran, which is, when I remember that Iran is subject to international sanctions. So we have to face lots of challenging moments, like, for example, the permit to stay, opening bank account, and to solve them, it was essential always finding a new solution and find the new way to have good international intercultural communication. So in conclusion, I want to underline that this was a very rich experience, and solving different problems, it's very useful to help the person to integrate and to do their research activity in a safely way.
Thank you, Ilaria. Francesca.
I'm aware that our time is up, but these are perhaps, when we open for discussion, these what we were thinking about in terms of SAR Scholars at Risk as a framework for Arqus collaboration. One possible way would be to have students joining the seminars organized by universities, so in terms of virtual mobility, or pooling expertise from Arqus universities within the seminars. If other universities run their seminars, we could collaborate on this kind of loose network level. But also there is, if we feel brave, we could think about jointly organizing seminars, so in the form of a very closely collaborative virtual exchange. These are some of the ways that we'd like to perhaps discuss later on. Thank you.
And maybe a very last word, just going back to what Sarah was saying before, that it's not just about virtual being in the online space, that of course some of the activities that were carried out over the last year had to be conducted only online, but the experience of these seminars are to have students meet at some point. This is how they run in the United States. This is what we're planning in Italy, to organize an event like a One National Advocacy Day, but there are also plans to do something similar at the European level. So the physical meeting, the coming together, is part of this planning.
Okay, thank you very much. I I suppose we can work on being a few minutes late. If anybody has any burning questions they want to ask our presenters right now, or if you'd just like to wait to the final discussion at the end. If you'd like to ask a question, you could write it in the chat, or you could simply also turn on your audio and video. Okay. Well, thank you. That was extremely inspiring, I think is the right word, because the work you're doing is so important to all of you. And at this, Lisa, did you have a question or? Oh, no, okay. So at this point then, I would turn it over to Tamas, and he will talk about his experience with For Them. So thank you very much, Claudia, Francesca, and Ilaria, and we look forward to discussing this further at the end of the session.
Thank you very much.
Tamas?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah, and it's great to be here. So thanks also for the invitation, and I'm quite sure that this first presentation was also very inspiring, and then I'm quite sure that we are quite an interesting program ahead of us. So I will share experiences of virtual exchange within For Them Alliance, in which I work as scientific manager for them lab actions. So you might ask what For Them is. So For Them is a first generation European Universities Alliance, and the abbreviation stands for Fostering Outreach Within European Regions, Transnational Higher Education and Mobility. And the Alliance is coordinated by Johannes Gutenberg University from Germany, and then the member universities are University of Jyväskylä, University of Valencia, University of Burgundy, University of Opole, University of Latvia, and the University of Palermo. So we are 7 universities in this alliance. We have also, in the implementation of the pilot project from 2019 to 2022, we have 7 work packages. Each partner is responsible for 1, and 4 work packages are related quite closely to mobility in different ways. So the Digital Academy, which is coordinated by the University of Palermo, is to set up a digital platform for academic exchange and also sharing of courses that we are developing, and also we are sharing already existing courses. The 4th work package is about innovative mobility structures, coordinated by the University of Burgundy, and I also consulted with experts of this work package when preparing this presentation, especially Professor Alexander Frame and Spela Jerala from University of Burgundy. So thank you for their help. VP5 is about Labs for Education, Research and Innovation, which is coordinated by University of Jyväskylä, where I work, and I'm responsible for this work package at an alliance level. So responsible for coordinating it. VP6 is about societal involvement, coordinated by the University of Valencia, and it's mainly about for example, a network of schools, network of students, for example, completing their studies or their kind of compulsory internships at various schools, and also about company internships and these kind of related issues. So I just mentioned these organizational issues, these work packages, that our activities are pretty much intertwined. So there's a lot to do about mobility. And actually, thank you for the very great introduction at the beginning of this meeting. I don't even need to define virtual mobility and exchange, and exactly as Sarah outlined, virtual exchange is about learning about each other and learning about ourselves, and we try to provide lots of opportunities both for staff and students and also for associated partners to learn from each other and make occasions for reflection and idea exchange. So you can read the definitions that there's the student mobility defined as a set of activities supported by ICT, including learning. And then virtual staff mobility is also a set of activities supported by ICT. And actually one important aspect is that both academic and administrative staff is welcome to take part in mobility and especially in exchange. So as it was outlined in the intro as well, mobility is not always exchange, but so virtual exchange is really about activity and interpersonal interactions. So I collected some examples from our practices that foster interaction and peer learning in our alliance, and I just highlighted those that I will talk about more in detail. So as you can see, and it's not even a complete list, so we have lots of activities both for students and staff for virtual exchange. Maybe I start with staff. So we are now organizing a series of virtual events called speed dating, where the staff members can find their colleagues in partner universities for building some collaborative ideas. And it's especially important because several of the partners are new to each other. We are such an alliance that several partners have not done intensive cooperation with each other or not done anything beforehand. So we really need to get to know each other, and these speed dating networking events are pretty effective in supporting this. There are also staff weeks and virtual visits. And there are some actions that are offered both for students and staff, as you can see in this table. So for example, in the innovative shared tutor project, staff members can act as tutors and the students as tutees, and also staff and so academic staff and students develop together various courses for digital academy platform, and actually Formative labs offer multi-stakeholder collaboration for many, so both staff members and students and associated partners. And also I need to emphasize the importance of virtual internships in this era of the pandemic. So there are company internships, and also the Formative lab expert networks provide internships for students. And first, just to talk about innovative shared tutored projects. So this means international virtual collaboration involving a group of students from any given degree from 2 or possibly more for them universities. And the students define the project themselves. They conceptualize something. They set the plan and realize the project in a given time frame and complete several tasks. The deliverable can be a product for a client or some academic work, for example, a scientific experiment, and also some students work on their bachelor's or master's thesis in this frame. And Laura will share her experiences about this later. Also, it is possible to carry out teaching in virtual exchange. We have piloted some courses together, for example, the multilingual and intercultural communication competence course. You can find more information behind the link. This is a joint pilot of the University of Jyväskylä and University of Burgundy, led by senior lecturer Teija Natri and lecturer Lotta Kokkonen from Jyväskylä and Professor Alexander Frame from Dijon from the University of Burgundy. So as Professor Frame writes, the students first read an article and then they discussed the content first in their first language, then in their second language, and then in their third language. So they actually had a truly multilingual interaction, during which they learned about the content, they learned about each other, and they learned about themselves as well. And then they also got a message to interpret, which in a language which was not necessarily known by them. So quite a complex experience, which received very positive feedback in general. So as you can see in this slide, University of Burgundy student wrote that the richness of one's repertoires is crucial to communicate with one another. So maybe for many, such an intercultural and multilingual experience was among the first ones when they use these various languages. And as this teacher from Jyväskylä, Lotta Kokkonen, summarized, the fact that it was exciting to realize that you can use languages even if you are not so good at them. So it's also about, you know, profiling themselves as speakers of various languages and gaining perhaps confidence in talking in some languages that are not that familiar to them. And as it was clear in the previous presentation as well, English, of course, is an important language. But also several further languages should be supported, and this course was a good tool for such support. And then I would like to share some experiences of FORDEM labs. So FORDEM labs are 7 interdisciplinary multi-stakeholder expert networks that work to provide research-based solutions to pressing societal issues, both on local and European levels. And all Alliance universities take part in these labs. And what makes these labs good arenas of exchange is that various stakeholders take part. So the academics, students, and also associated partners who might be either academia external partners, such as non-governmental organizations or state administration institutions or some other or companies. And associated partners can also be academics or research groups from other universities that are not members in our alliance. So all these students and researchers and associated partners work together to find out some feasible solutions and to work on outputs to address challenges. And each alliance member university is responsible for coordinating one FORDEM lab. You can see the list here. And what is even more interesting, that exchange does not only happen inside the labs, but also cross labs. So, for example, there has been a very fruitful collaboration between diversity and migration and experiencing Europe labs, or multilingualism and diversity and migration labs, or food science and climate and resources. And I could continue the list because in all kinds of combinations, these labs can collaborate and then carry out multi-stakeholder kind of multidisciplinary collaboration. So what are those outputs through which the labs address various societal challenges? These can be courses for FORDEM Digital Academy. This week, several output developing teams got internal funding for developing their courses. So that's a pretty good motivation and good resources for work. Also, there is internal funding for organizing workshops or to work on various publications, for example, journal special issues or edited volumes, or to organize summer schools. Some of them has been transferred to virtual modality. Some of them have been postponed because, as it was also mentioned earlier, these labs also although they work now in a virtual way, but it is meant to meet in person later. And all the outputs are developed by researchers, students, and associated partners together. So it's very important that there's this dialogue. And in each lab, there are 5 to 8 outputs in progress. And now we are exactly in the stage of progress meetings, during which the labs have an overview of what they've achieved in their first year of operation. And you can find further information behind the link and also behind the QR code. So we have a list of these outputs online. And just virtual exchange in numbers. So contributors of labs organize various types of virtual meetings, and actually at this stage that's what we understand as a series of actions. So there are management meetings such as the kickoff meetings that we organized last year, and 2 progress meetings that should be organized, and as I mentioned, now we have the first progress meetings, and there's a sustainability meeting at the end to think about collaboration after this pilot funding period. So from September 2022, there are also regular meetings of the working groups at different levels, and also ad hoc meetings and public webinars and virtual workshops. Several of them have been already organized and well attended. And now we've just submitted our midterm report. So then we needed to count that there have been 56 tracks of meetings and events so far, with 1,000 contributors roughly, or even more. Academic staff was about half of the participants, and students roughly 2/5, and associated partners 1/10. And actually we really need to work on involving the associated partners much more intensively. And now I would give the floor to the students who were so kind and accepted my invitation to this event. So Laura Castañabassa from Jyväskylä will talk about innovative shared tutor projects, and Tiago Craig from Valencia and Vena Ho from Jyväskylä will talk about their involvement in Forum Labs. So the floor is now yours.
Okay, so thank you, Tamas. So I'm now going to share my experience as a student participant in one of the Forum innovative shared tutor projects. So the project I took part in is organized by the University of Valencia, and is called Pyramidal Tutoring of Final Master's Dissertation. And it started last November, and we are together 3 participants with the tutor. And the project is basically about exploring new possibilities to join together research, teaching, and transferring knowledge to the field of education. And it focuses also on discussions on our work on the research on our master thesis. We meet regularly every 2-3 weeks online, and we have different types of meetings. So we have group meetings in which we are invited to share our experience, our work, our progress, and also our weaknesses. And we are also given the chance to receive and give peer feedback during these discussions while we are sharing our work. And it's a very positive experience because we learn from each other, from different experiences, and we can also get some perspective from an outsider, for example, in some things that we may not realize we're working on it. And also we have individual peer feedback sessions, individual feedback sessions, in which we receive personalized feedback from our tutor. So we share our work with the tutor, and then she gave us some suggestions with the structure and also with the writing, which is also very beneficial, because apart from our supervisor from our university, we also have a second supervisor in which we also have like as an external person. And apart from these feedback meetings, we have the formative sessions in which the University of Bourgogne give us 3 sessions about to give us a clear idea of the research progress. So for example, defining like general terms, and also help us to construct more general ideas for our research. And overall, my experience in this project has been very positive and beneficial for the, structuring my research project, and also for learning from each other and sharing our experiences, and also for the fact of getting second feedback from a second supervisor. So thank you very much. So now I'm going to give the floor to Tiago, who's going to share his experience about the Fordham Labs.
Hi. Hello. Thank you, Lara. Well, so basically I wanted to talk about something I, as a bachelor student, find quite significant about students' participation in Fordham Labs, and concretely in the multilingualism lab. And it is the fact that we can actually work on the development of the outputs we participate in. For example, I personally, together with other students from Valencia, 2 bachelors and 1 PhD, we, among us 4, we end up writing a chapter for an academic manual about multimodality in academic journals. And in the near future, I will contribute to developing together with Thomas. And also when I start to work on this, we're going to collaborate in developing a digital course for the Digital Academy. So the fact that students, no matter their level of studies, can actually work in the development of the outputs, I think it makes the experience of participating for them not only have a cultural perspective or dimension in terms of that different nations are involved, but it also makes the experience, I think of it as an academic mobility, in the sense that we sort of move to a dimension of academia most bachelor's or even master's students have never been in contact with. And this dimension of academia has its own culture. So I think this possibility of participating this way makes the experience of contributing to labs more valuable. And now I give those to Wendy.
All right, thank you. So I was told that I have 3 minutes and 33 seconds, so I'm ready to demonstrate a tongue twister. So I'd like to talk about.
Well, you actually have 4 minutes.
Okay,
so
that's better. Right, so I would like to talk about my experience in basically 2 dimensions. First is being part of the multilingualism collaborative course development team. So it's actually my first time to be involved in a university level course development in collaboration with other universities and making the best use out of this virtual exchange platform. And I think throughout the process, students are really welcome to exercise our agency. And because I was never really trained in linguistics, Thomas and other team members have really created a very welcoming environment for everyone to contribute. And I was able to integrate my experience in the arts and interest in non-formal learning environment like the museums to propose arts-based learning approaches. So currently we're basically developing learning materials for the course, and we could really actively contribute and make our voices heard as students, and that's really valuable for me. So at the same time, I'm also part of Creative Learning Lab, which is a project under the Fortham Initiative. So I have been working with a PhD researcher to develop creative approaches of learning, mainly for teacher students. So we've actually hosted the inaugurated series in February, titled Making Sense of Our Senses, which are a series of arts-based activities involving embodied experience and so to foster social-emotional learning. So we really wanted to make use of this online platform, this virtual exchange opportunity to stimulate offline action, especially during this unusual time. So actually a month after the session, a participant messaged me saying that when she went out for a walk, she has actually engaged all her senses inspired by our exercises. So I was quite touched by it because that's really rewarding for me. So with working with an intimate group really have the advantage of having more human connection between participants. So the lab is actually still ongoing, and we have other topics covering well-being and creative writing. So to me, Foursome is really a growing community where students and teachers come together with a heart for innovation, and I'm very glad to be part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you.
You're only 2 minutes, so you did quite well.
Yeah, and I would also like to thank you to Laura, Tiago, and Vena for sharing their experience. And maybe just to also to clarify on this joint course development, for example, so the students propose topics and develop learning materials, and then we have regular feedback sessions and writing sessions during which the academics who also develop such materials, so academics and then students, and most likely in the future also in-service teachers think about together, about those materials and fine-tune them so that we can provide good quality units for learning in the future. And currently 5 of the 7 Fordham universities have signed up to this course, so they will offer it for their own students through the Digital Academy platform.
Okay, thank you. Maybe you could stop screen sharing and we could see if there are questions. If anybody in our audience has any questions for these 5 speakers. Again, you could ask questions in the chat, or you could just turn your microphone on.
So you got very good feedback, Laura, Tiago, and Vena in the chat.
Sarah,
Yeah, I think
just a small question. Thank you so much. Thank you, Thomas and Laura and Tiago and all. It's very inspiring. What surprises me is the challenge of coordinating all these activities. So I would like to know a bit more in terms of how is this coordination happening? Because we know from other experiences with teaching partnership where we are conducting joint activities with 3-4 different universities, takes lots of time, lots of energy. It's very challenging. And to me, if you take this at the institutional level, the main challenge is actually, coordinating with the kind of knowledge and understanding. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, organizing these activities of the labs is time consuming. So I'm a scientific manager for lab actions. I'm responsible for coordinating all the 7 labs in the 7 university, but luckily they all have their local contact persons who take care of organizing activities in their own university. I also have 2 colleagues, Oskari Westerinen and Mira Väyrynen, both from the University of Jyväskylä, who take part in organizing activities. So I'm mainly responsible for research, and Oskari is for student involvement, and Mira is for associated partners involvement. This is our share of load. And also in this alliance, many people have various roles. So I'm also a contact person at alliance level of this multilingualism in school and higher education lab, which means a general coordination of the work. And when we organize our work, for example, in the multilingualism lab, there are 8 outputs running now. Each output has their output manager, who is responsible for delivering the output in time and organizing activities. And so as my maybe third or fourth role is to have output manager, to be output manager for this course on multilingual learning environment. So actually these teams really need to work a lot on you know, maintaining communication, organizing meetings, collecting feedback, etc. But indeed, it's quite time consuming. And for example, when we planned the project, we couldn't quite well calculate beforehand how much work it would actually mean in practice. But it's at the same time very very great, and everybody can learn a lot from this. So yeah.
There's another question. There's one kind of general question that somebody wrote in the chat that I'll wait until the end to pose. That was the one that Dunia wrote. But then there's a specific question from Nina, who said, what would you say is instrumental in getting people on board for the For Them Labs? How long did it take to grow a productive group dynamic? So getting people interested and on board and working together.
Yeah, actually, this is a very, very good question, and we need to continuously work on that. Actually, when we had the kickoff meetings last year, first there were local kickoff meetings. So each partner university had a kind of general idea of the topics of the labs, so the main challenges around which they are organized, and then they presented their local needs, and then at the alliance level kickoff, they put together, you know, these local needs and decided what they would like to do on the alliance level, and then they started to organize these out of developing teams. And also I need to mention that 2 labs, climate and resources and resilience, life quality of life, and demographic change labs, these were chosen by the students. So these 2 labs, the topics of 2 labs were defined based on the wishes of students. So that's also a good motivation for participation, that they themselves can actually propose the topics. And also, I think it's important for motivation and participation that in all labs the outputs are defined in a bottom-up approach. So the members themselves find out what they want to do together. Of course, we need to think about feasibility. And because most of the time we have worked inside universities, and academics and students are quite nicely involved. But now we have the supporting project Fit for Them, which is to strengthen the research and innovation dimension, and that especially is focusing on the involvement of associated partners. So how to reach out to companies and various organizations and involve them in the work of labs, because they really are needed to handle these various challenges that we are working on. And well, now we have this, so the second part of the question is, how long did it take to grow a productive group dynamic? The labs are in various stages. 4 labs were established in last spring, and 3 in last autumn. So they are in different stage of building their team and their own working culture. We have the guidelines, we have a structure and operational model document, but of course all the labs are not autonomous in that sense that they can kind of fine-tune how they want to work. But we now think that we have 3 years now in this pilot project. We are in the middle of that currently. We have these 3 years to get to know each other and shape our working culture together, and then we are continuously thinking about how to make it then sustainable in the future.
Thank you, Tamas. Yeah, I think things take time, and that's it's always nice to have an honest answer. So it wasn't just from yesterday to today that these labs got up and running. It does take time.
Yeah, and actually, you know, so I also work on this almost full time, and also there are 2 full-time colleagues who work only on coordinating the labs, so that really needs resources. And so yeah, it's challenging, but at the same time very kind of rewarding as well when you see how things develop.
Yeah, so I think maybe in our final discussion, words such as agency, which one of your students brought up, giving students agency, but then also resources and time for making these things work and sustainable, these things will come up.
Yeah.
So thank you, and thank your students for that very interesting presentation about your network and what you're doing. And I'd like to pass it over to Lisa and Veronica now to talk to us about a project here in Padua.
Yes. Can you see the slides?
Yes, just need to see it in presentation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a tandem as a pre-mobility project, and this is what we will see in a while. What's about, why it takes place, who is involved, when it takes place, how it's implemented, and what students think about it. This project has won in 2016 the European language label, and we're encouraging new initiatives in the language teaching and learning, and was part, as Sarah and Francesca knows already, was part of the EVE, Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange, a European pilot project enabling youth to engage in intercultural learning experiences. I don't know if you are familiar with eTandem, but let's say that the general definition of it is peer-to-peer language learning at a distance. But our project, it's slightly different from this definition, as it can be summed up with the following sentence. We help you learn our language and culture, and you help us learn yours. So as you see, it's not a bilingual setting, a multilingual one. And as a matter of fact, we managed to set up a multilingual, multicultural community where students were able to interact and communicate in various languages, 6. To be precise: Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, English, and German. And this community worked also to prevent students from abandoning the project and the correspondence. As you see in the right, there are some keywords of this project, and informality is a relevant one. As a matter of fact, it's an informal activity. It's an extracurricular one to which students can enroll on a voluntary basis. So what's the rationale behind it? It fosters soft skills, of course, like resilience, creativity, self-awareness, tolerance, negotiation, critical thinking, teamwork, active listening, and so forth and so on, but also links physical and virtual mobility, as it prepares mentally and emotionally students to their physical mobility. It also boosts internationalization at home, when students want to live an international dimension at home, as well as a broad education. As we will see in a while, the Italian group, the domestic students group, includes both students who were selected for an exchange abroad, and those students who didn't apply yet, so not mobile students. And what we noticed is that at the very end of the project, the latter, that is say no mobile students, were eager to emulate their fellows and so to apply for an exchange abroad. It also deepened digital, linguistic, and cultural competence, of course, and include international students in our city, in our university, in our country. So who is involved? As we already said, international and incoming students from all over the world that are already in Italy or about to come. They are matched to domestic students that range from different degree courses. And so triads and triads are formed following some criteria such as destination, course of study, language chosen, and Francesca Helm is the coordinating supervisor, while Veronica and I are the tutors. When it takes place, it's run twice a year. It takes place before the arrival of international students, of course, and before the leaving of domestic students. And 11 rounds have been run so far. The 12th will start from July and will end in October. The tandem foresees 3 different ways of interactions, many-to-many, where a community based in Facebook and in Moodle, where students can contribute in different languages. All of them are lingua franca, and they can switch from one language to the other whenever they want. Then there is another way of interaction with few. It implies students carry out collaborative activities like creating infographics, but Veronica will talk about it in detail very soon. And then the last line of interaction is the one-to-one, where the time must be equally split to practice the target language. It can be, of course, different from Italian, French, Spanish, or Portuguese, and so could be less taught and less learned languages like Czech, Polish, Norwegian, Lithuanian, and so forth and so on. And the students can choose among a myriad of tools to interact. And the activities we have carried out are of 2 types. One are synchronous and some others are synchronous. In the synchronous, we launched on a weekly basis every Monday the main topic, followed by some other sub-themes throughout the week. And the synchronous activities were run by Eve trained facilitators. I'm among those. Let's say that in this period, I mean, during the COVID emergency, we decided to double online meetings. So instead of running 8 for online sessions, we ran 8, and students were grateful for that. And the topics we addressed were neutral, controversial, and personal, and pretty much in line with UNESCO Social Development Goals. As far as neutral topics, we dealt with traveling, reading, cooking, music, tradition, superstitions, and as far as controversial ones, We dealt with social inclusion, social inequalities, body positivity, climate change, online identity versus presence identity, cultural stereotypes, resilience, failure, homelessness, and so forth and so on. Okay, I give the floor to Veronica.
So eTandem is always evolving. We experiment a little bit, and also thanks to our student feedbacks, we try to implement things, change things, and always be updated. But we will see that later. At first, it was based on Facebook, and we're still using it. We consider to use other social media for interaction, but actually Facebook is the most practical one, because they can have conversations. We can have this group, long conversation, long discussions, posts twice per week. We give them some topics that can be discussed, and you can organize lessons, so it's easier to find and find back also previous discussions. However, not all the students use Facebook, because actually it's a bit for all people, so we don't want to oblige them to log in and to create an account there. So we also use Moodle. It's very practical for all the documents related to the program. So matches, contact details, for example, for uploading their diaries, because students are required to write down a diary about their experience at the end of the experience, but also to bring on the discussions if they are not on Facebook. So also in Moodle, we can do that. But we also try to find new way to interact with them and to make it more interesting. And I must say that Lisa is really, really good at this. So for this last edition, we use, for example, Padlet. It was very useful to introduce some topics using images to light up the discussion during synchronous activities. And also, as students were asked to work on infographics, and we will see later better we posted them on a Padlet. They could vote the most nice infographic, and we had a winner at the very end of the project. So just to make things more interesting for all of them and more interactive. During the synchronous session, we use also the help of Hoop Club. It's really appreciated by students. You can use it also for your presentations, to make polls and to make these really nice word clouds where you can ask them to sum up in few words their opinion about one topic, for example, about one question. And last but not least, we also use Kahoot. It's a quiz online. You can find some quizzes that are already made, some quizzes you can make your own, or can personalize about the topic of the day. And we use it to introduce the discussion, to start the topic of the day, because always our synchronous sessions had a fil rouge through the session, so a main topic and some other small topics. And so it was just a playful way to start deeping some more serious topics. And so, as I was saying, eTandem for us is no longer just a language program. It's a way just to improve your language skills, but it's a way to work towards enhancing your soft skills and help students do that, of course. They are our target. And just for in one activity, you can enhance more skills and different type of skills. For example, we work on that through the discussion during the synchronous sessions. For example, we made one discussion about web reputation. And so the perception that people has of themselves and how they present themselves online, and this huge difference. So they could also work on the personal skills and build their self-awareness, but all through activities. So let's think about the infographics that form this edition on are compulsory, because for us it's a really nice way to make them work on their soft skills. So students were asked to keep thinking and keep discussing in small groups about the topic of the week. And they had to create this infographic. We provided them a guide in order to learn how to search for information, to develop technical logical skills, to work in group, so develop social skills, and also to be creative, for example, and create these infographics. So as you can see, many skills can be developed, but recognition of those it's still an issue. At the moment, we're releasing a badge, an open badge, to recognize the commitment that the students made towards the project and the results that this project can help raising them. But of course, we will still looking for a solution to evaluate even better those skills. So there are some challenges that we face. For example, the gap into students' commitment. Of course, you cannot have any control on this, whether they will have a high level of commitment or not. There are also dropouts. We always try to find a way to solve this and to figure this out. And for example, we make some triples and quadruplets, and we call them adoptions. So left out students can be matched with some other students also in the middle of the projects. And we already said that we use 2 tools, so students are not obliged to just use one platform. And however, there is this balance because we are Italian and the program is developed by our university. So there is a major push on the Italian side. So of course, we're looking for the future. And in the future, we looking forward creating a network or find some other university we can collaborate with. And Arqus, it's a really important target for this. So we can, of course, find a balance between the Italian side and the international side. So we use feedbacks. They're really, really important. So small ones at the end of any synchronous activity. So students can give us just small advices and we can introduce it straight away. As you can see, they just give us some feedbacks on the topics, if they enjoyed it, or if there's something that they would like to improve, like more time to discuss or smaller groups or something else. And this is so important for us, but we're really proud because, as you can see, and they were not forced to say so, they seemed quite happy about the results and the work. And at the very end of the project, they can also give us an overall feedback on the full experience. Usually they're pretty happy about this, but I will leave the floor to our students because they will say you and they will tell you better how was it from their perspective. That is the most important point of view. So I will, yeah.
Are we going to hear from who we're going to hear from first, Andrea or Veronica?
Andrea, please. Thank you, Andrea.
Okay.
Thank you, Andrea.
Hi, everyone. As you can see, I'm a student at University of Padua, so I'm a domestic student. I'm just going to present my experience. This experience for me was a good moment to relive one of the most important things that COVID-19 has taken away from us, which are the sense of communities and confrontation. This has become even more significant when, due to personal problem, I was forced to give up on my chance of international mobility experience. I think therefore that the virtual Erasmus is a great way to get to know people, but also calm your anxieties about the jump into the void that a mobility experience represents. Throughout the period when I was convinced I was going to leave, my virtual correspondents were a great help on finding all the information and feeling comfortable. Then that continuous exchange about different views on different issues was by far an added value that only this kind of experience can give. Of the whole experience, I really appreciated the synchronous interaction between a few persons that give you the impression of having gone with a group of friends to discuss to the most different topic. In addition, the topics allowed for stimulating discussion that you then struggle to want to end. Moreover, I consider this kind of experience a very good teaching method. It was easier for me to learn some new words and expression than in normal frontal lesson. I'm a very shy person, afraid of making fool in front of the others. So throughout the whole experience, I try to put myself on the line to talk more than I usually do, to participate in group work, and try to say my opinions about the different topics. Pushing yourself, trying to improve yourself while having fun. That is what this experience meant for me. So why I recommend it? First, because I believe this experience is a good introduction before the physical experience of mobility. It is normal to be frightened by this jump into the void, but sharing this fear with the others helps to improve the mood. Having this sort of insider's view of the new reality helps you to feel less exposed to the warriors and therefore to face the whole experience with a more serene spirit. Unfortunately, my journey in this transition comes to an end with this experience because it was impossible for me to go to my destination. So even those will not be able to do a mobility exchange physically, I can assure you firsthand that this type of experience will make you enjoy some of the mobility you have been waiting to do. Take the opportunity to learn about the world through someone else's eyes. It will be fun and inspiring. I think the whole experience also helped me to improve my vocabulary to some extent by using some slang, exchanging opinions about the origin of the word. It all led more question about the language I speak on a daily basis and the one that I want to use as my lingua franca. I have always grown up between two cultures as being half Romanian and half Italian. I've always heard different language blend together at home, but I never asked myself so many questions about it. Thanks to this project, you understand how languages are interconnected and how they are really just bridges that allow to get know new people and culture. Europe is a collection of nuance, tales, and people that this project is able to bring together. So this was just my experience. I'm giving the floor to Veronica to say hers.
Hello, everyone. So I would like to say about my experience, and I have to say that in the beginning, I was quite skeptical towards the project because I thought like in times of online studying and also when we contact friends mostly online, how it's possible that people want to spend even more time in front of the screen. Personally, I was really hesitating if to participate because I was kind of fed up with these online contacts. Even during video calls with my close friends, I was just too tired. But I'm really happy that I took the decision to participate in Tandem because it really helped me to improve many stuff about which I will talk later. So it was very extraordinary for me that almost 100 people wanted to do this activity online. And in the end, for me, it helped me a lot to gain confidence and gain some hope and power and really some kind of faith in students, in young people, because it was very beautiful for me to see that the people participate to learn new things, to practice new skills. They make an effort and they open themselves because they share many personal stuff, and they do all of this just because they want, and just because they want to improve themselves and help others. And for me, all the aspects of eTandem were very interesting, but particularly I have to say I was always waiting for the Wednesday sessions on Zoom, because at that time I was in Poland. I had all my studies online. I was spending whole days in my room in dormitory, and this opportunity to every week speak with the people from different countries, with the people who are maybe even from the same country but are so different from me, to be able to express my opinion and, as Andrei said, to confront myself with other people. It was something I was always really waiting for. Also because I always felt listened, and always I felt that my opinion is respected, even if it's in contrary to other opinions. And thanks to the fact that we were speaking not only in the big groups, but also in small breakout rooms, I would say that the talks were sometimes very personal, and there was a good atmosphere to share our individual beliefs. And we could always share it also in the main session, but we were never forced to do it. So yeah, I really appreciated it. And the topics of discussion were, for me, very engaging, and I would say sometimes they were quite controversial. For example, the questions like if the COVID vaccine should be mandatory, or if some activities should be available only for vaccinated people. These kind of questions, for me, it's impossible to speak about this with my family. So how can it be possible to speak about this with strangers, let's say, with people from different countries who obviously have also different perspective, because the situation in their country is different. But we were able to do it, and it was really unbelievable for me. Another hot topics, another involving subjects for me were about the gender equality and the issues of pay gap, dream gap, glass ceiling. And I appreciated these discussions a lot, even if sometimes the topics were quite heavy. For example, this topic of gender equality. And for me, it causes a lot of emotions, like some kind of anger, and the question inside of me, like why it is like this. But after the discussion, when we were making the infographic together with my group, I had the positive feeling of doing something, of let's say creating a positive message with others, because we made an infographic about the impressive women who are examples of they do the job not traditionally connected with the gender. So the beautiful examples of impressive women. And then I felt like, oh, we created something together through our cooperation. And beside this, also other issues like global warming, Eurocentric perspective, quite controversial and heavy topics. We also had a lot of topics quite relaxed and entertaining, like learning some idioms in different languages which are related to food, or sharing Christmas tradition, carnival traditions. And so the cultural exchange was on many levels, because we were exchanging our different points of view on the hot global issues, but also we were sharing traditions, characteristic for our places, and we were also sharing personal, individual beliefs. So I have to say that also it was very personal, that we were speaking on Zoom, we could see each other, hear each other, so there were opinions which were always connected with the specific person, and it was really sometimes like a real face-to-face communication for me, which I didn't expect before. And about the asynchronous activities, like on Facebook or on Padlet, as it was mentioned, for me, it was very impressive that we were communicating in different languages, not only in English. So the people who could theoretically make the statements, make the comment in Italian or in English, they made an effort to do it in different language, like in Spanish or German, just to challenge themselves. And it was very inspiring for me, for my own efforts to improve, to challenge myself to speak Italian, which was my target. And I have to say that also the Padlet activities, the metacognitive. Yes.
No, sorry, I was just going to interrupt because the time is almost up. It is up,
okay,
actually.
okay.
If you have a closing thought, maybe.
Yes. Okay. So I have to say that for me, also the communication with my tandem partner was the thing, and also in general the tandem program was the thing which made me come to Padova. Before I was really hesitating to make my exchange through, but it gave me courage. It made me more curious about the people and convinced that I can really do it. And also it helped me to create the network of people who I know. So when I came to Padova, I felt more welcomed. I felt able to communicate with people who I already know. So for me, this program gave me like really influence on my decision to make my mobility in Padova. And it was great experience of freedom, autonomy, and really fascinating diversity of people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you very much. Marvelous.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. So Andrea and Veronica and Lisa and Veronica. I thought I was repeating myself, but I think we're going to skip the 5-minute questions because we're left. So I would like to do at this point is, so Veronica even just, when she was ending just now, talked about having a network of people in Padova, right? And I started out the presentation talking about the session, talking about the fact that virtual exchange is a networked form of learning. And so this week, and you are to throw out this idea. I think our first presentation, our first case study, and the one we've just heard now, throughout the Arqus network. And then for them, case study examples of how networks are working together on these things. So maybe, I mean, of course, you can ask questions, but also if you have ideas or thoughts about what you today, I know we've thrown a lot of information at you.
Oh, we have lost her.
Sarah has connection problems.
Yeah.
I guess Andrews raised his hands.
Yes, but I'm not sure, you know, I don't want to interrupt the moderator. and okay, I'll start if we'll have her, maybe she can continue. First of all, thanks a lot for very inspiring stories and cases. And I think the last examples of students or feedback or from students was a great way to end the session. I have a couple of suggestions. Maybe again, I try to be quite practical in these things, as with how, you know, we can proceed, at least because I think if some projects will be implemented or included somehow in our Arqus activities, if they would be included in our Arqus activities, it would be really, really great. As with the first Scholars at Risk and Advocacy courses of virtual exchange, I think it's very much related to action line number 2, inclusion, board and inclusion activities. They don't have an activity related to Scholars at Risk exactly, and are more working towards inclusion of students, of course, but you know, the advocacy in general, it would be very much related, and it is coordinated by Padua. So I'd suggest really reaching out to Benedetta Zatti, who is a coordinator of this, and figure out a way to, you know, to maybe somehow work on it in our network. And of course, we have well, my action line is related to somehow related to virtual exchange and so on. So I think we would definitely be on board, and it would be a really, really interesting experience, and we would find people who would like to join this. As with the last one, Veronica, you perfectly well know that we are working on mobility windows, and I think if we could introduce this this kind of a course for students, of course it's a long way to go still to start introducing mobility windows, implementing mobility windows in different study programs. But I think this kind of preparatory course before you choose or you go abroad, it would be really great, you know. And if we are working, if we'll be working mostly, if we'll be talking mostly about students going, you know, out to other Arqus universities, that would be perfect, you know, for all of them to exchange their experience and you know, get to know each city, each university. So yeah, that's my just 2 ideas that quickly popped into my mind. Thank you.
Zoom keeps kicking me out, but I insist and come back in. Thomas has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. It just came to my mind that that indeed these language learning opportunities are very, very great, and in for them we are also developing 7 language courses for the 7 possible target countries and target languages, and that's also part of the digital academy, and it would be interesting for the colleagues that work on that those courses to exchange experiences. And it just came to my mind that when we kind of approached multilingualism from various perspectives, so I serve as co-chair of the Cross Alliance's for EU subgroup on multilingualism, which discusses multilingual practices and language policies in the various alliances. So that would be also interesting to exchange, because these are exactly the topics that we discuss, these kind of language course offerings, the various types of tandem actions, and the language political aspects. And then I noticed that also in Arqus there's a goal. I just noted it down, that you want to set up a language charter, etc. So there would be quite interesting things to discuss in this subgroup. So this is really a kind of informal group across alliances, and yeah, you would be then welcome.
Yes, thank you, Thomas. One of the reasons we decided to invite him to this event is because if we're talking about networks, there are all these different levels and layers of networks. And I think it's also nice, the idea of having the European University Alliances also network with one another so that they can learn from one another, right? especially those who have already started, maybe can, you know, give some ideas to those who are just starting now. So are there any other thoughts or ideas about how to move forward with these types of activities within Arqus, or are there any questions you might have? Francesca wrote in the chat that maybe you could say something more about the Arqus Cafe.
I was asking you, but she's written saying that they have a meeting on Friday. I wish we had so much more time, because I think one of the issues that we're all grappling with is having time to you know, to engage and to find out more about all the different activities. I know Dorothy Kelly has mentioned several Arqus activities that we could also get involved with. For example, there was the winter school and things. Ah, there's Joep.
Yes.
Is that right?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, we have a workshop on how we trained our Arqus tutors on Friday. Our colleague Fabiana will present and show how we overcame some obstacles to make our tutors familiar with this new virtual room that we do our cafe in, and how to find topics, how to keep the talk going on in a foreign language. So our tutors, they are native speakers and they are volunteering to be the tutor in the cafe, or we call them sometimes the bartender. And yeah, it's challenging, but it's big fun for them, and they take out a lot, and it's a lot of immersion and cultural exchange besides the language learning and training of communicative skills is going on. And yeah, we are always in contact with Barbara and Caroline from Padua, and we should definitely meet in one or the other context and exchange the e-tandem and the language cafe, because there might be synergy effects, and we can easily expand it, or share experiences, or open to more courses than it is known right now. So I just noted your email address, and I will get in contact with you.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges within these networks is also knowing who's doing what, and knowing who to involve and who to contact. So I think situations such as this give us the opportunity to do some of that.
That's why we meet here.
So Dorothy, keep on. So Dorothy, you are writing very useful comments in the chat. I'm wondering if you have any final thoughts on what we've said today and how it might be useful for Arqus. If I'm not putting you on the spot. If I am,
that's okay. That's okay. I wasn't actually planning to comment directly, but yeah, I think just to pick up, I think on one of your points, and that is the very. I'm sorry, you probably can't hear me because I had my mic in the wrong place. Yeah, sorry. You can tell I wasn't planning to talk. I think I'd just like to pick up on one of your comments, and that is the very, very enriching nature of networking amongst the networks. And I think Thomas has also brought this up, and right from the very, very beginning of the European Universities Initiative, the 17 first alliances set up an informal network where we are able to exchange experience, best practice, and so on. And the second 24 have done the same, and then sometimes all 41 come together to share experiences. But of course, that already is 280 universities, so you know it's a huge number. But I think one of the other objectives of this Arqus Academy week was precisely what we're doing, and that is to tell each other what is happening within the alliance work plans, but also in other alliances, as we have seen.
and also at each of our universities outside our initial work plans, and to move forward in bringing in other initiatives to what we're doing, because of course work plans are not written in stone, or shouldn't be written in stone. They need to be dynamic, they need to be flexible, and they need to incorporate new ideas as we move forward. And I think certainly the sessions that I have been able to attend both yesterday and today in various different areas of the Alliance activity have certainly put on the table some very, very interesting initiatives. And I think, you know, as you said, the Action Line 4 has been working in the Arqus Cafe and has now extended that to the Arqus Lounge as a space for staff to come together in a virtual exchange format. And I think there's lots and lots of room for us to continue, lots and lots of room. And the key to that inevitably is indeed knowing who to contact and where. Each of our 7 universities has a central contact person. And I would suggest that that is the easiest way to move forward if we don't have the direct contacts. So, and I would certainly encourage all of us, and I include myself, to do that. And that's, yeah. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks.
Thank you. I think that was a nice way to end discussion. So I appreciate that. I'm aware of time. I'm also aware that we've kept you here for 2 hours, and I want to respect that time frame. So I hope we've left your minds buzzing a little bit with ideas that you might want to move forward. And I'd like to thank all of our many, many speakers, and especially our students, our student voices. You know, who was it, Andre, who said he was shy, and here he is speaking to, you know, 67 adults online. So clearly this type of activity, this virtual exchange, does have an impact on students and their confidence. And so we appreciate you demonstrating that confidence to us today and sharing your experiences with us. So we wish you a wonderful rest of the Academy. And of course, I see people sharing email addresses and other things in the chat. So hopefully some ideas that you've come up with today will lead to you actually getting in touch and starting to at least think together about things. So thank you for your attention and your participation, your questions, your comments in the chat. And have a nice, I guess it's lunchtime, so have a nice lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you again for the invitation. It was great being here with you, and enjoy the rest of the academy week. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for
coming. Thank you,
Bye.
Tamas. Thank you all.
Bye bye.